Hi, everybody. Hopefully you're seeing us clearly. My name is Richard Tromans. I'm the founder and editor of Artificial Lawyer, the legal tech magazine. Today, we're doing a special webinar all about legal training and education. And in particular, we're going to look at how one firm, Orrick, and we have two guests from Orrick who are going to tell us more about what they do, and also how AltaClaro, a legal tech and training company, is using simulations to help with training. The reason why we're doing all of this is because AI clearly is going to have an impact both on the way that we do our work as lawyers and also the way that we train lawyers, both junior ones and very junior ones at university and all the way up to partner. It really is an evolving situation. So, without further ado, let's introduce everybody. Kelly, would you like to begin?
Sure, I'm happy to chat. My name is Kelly. I am the Associate Director of Talent Innovation at Orrick. And what does that mean? I am a lawyer by trade. I've been practicing lawyer for over 20 years, but about 4 years ago, and I was a litigator for years, always involved in training, always involved with our summer program and our junior associates. Moved over to Orrick. I've been here for 16 years. Continued to be while I was practicing to be really involved with training, junior lawyers, folks on alternative career paths, not just our partnership track associates. And about 4 years ago, I actually moved into the role I'm in now, where I have a couple different focus, but one of them is onboarding. Is it sort of we came up with a sort of interesting new way to onboard our most junior lawyers, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I also am super involved with our summer program and their training as well, and sort of training generally, particularly in the litigation space. So excited to be here.
Fantastic, fantastic. And Kate, who is also Oric.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Kate Orr, Managing Director of Practice Innovation at Orrick. I actually have Kelly beat. I've been at Orrick for 20 years, was a litigator here for many years. My role at a 30,000 foot level and sort of what practice innovation means is we have innovation attorneys that are embedded across practice groups and business units of the firm. And we really serve as a bridge between our practicing lawyers and all of the great people resources that we have at the firm, processes, streamlining, reengineering, and then, of course, technology. So that trifecta of people, process, and technology, we're focused on leveraging those in the practice to deliver higher quality support and services to our clients, find efficiencies, et cetera. Not surprisingly, a big focus for us right now is generative AI, how we're integrating it into the practice, how we're training our lawyers to leverage it, to use it, and working with Kelly, how we're training our most junior lawyers to be lawyers in the age of AI.
Fantastic, fantastic. And we're going to come back to all of those points very shortly. And Abdi, please tell us about yourself and the simulations.
Hi, Richard. Great to be here with Orrick, Kate, and Kelly on Artificial Lawyer. I'm Abdi Shayeste, CEO and founder of AltaClaro. AltaClaro is something I wished I had. I practiced for over 15 years as a corporate and banking lawyer. I was in big law. I was at King and Spalding. Eventually was in-house at the Federal Reserve as well as Bank of Tokyo, MUFG. We serve today over 100 AmLaw 200 firms, and all of our programs are simulation-based, where associates learn through simulated assignments, the types that they would normally see land on their desk in the real world. Gives them a chance to practice, to make mistakes in a safe environment and get immediate feedback. But this is something that when I'm going back to being an associate, I realized very quickly that it was my progression depended on the more assignments I got, and the more feedback I got, right? The more assignments, more feedback, and the diversity of assignments that I received would have enhanced my progression. And I realized very quickly that I got lucky. There was someone down the hall who was kind of on the retirement stage, and he would take my questions late at night even. That helped me progress, but I realized not everybody had access to that. In particular, diverse lawyers and female lawyers, the same people were getting the same deals over and over again, and folks could be left out, especially after 4 years. They're just doing the grunt work. So I remember thinking at that time, if pilots have flight simulators, Why
Yeah.
not lawyers?
Yeah.
And I was a technology startup founder before. This is my third startup, and thinking, there ought to be something like that. But it wasn't until perhaps a decade later, after I was finally in-house, where I would look at associates spinning their wheels on my matter, spending 10 hours reviewing an NDA, where I thought, geez, we really need to tackle this. And that's what we started AltaClaro. We have over 60 courses now in different areas, but it was those first early adopter clients that really leaned into this. And Orrick was one of them. They were client number 4, where not only did they love this and deploy this, but they asked us to do more. So all of the courses we created across litigation, corporate, M&A, all of those were because of this dynamic relationship. Orrick also came to us and came up with great ideas, like creating the first prompt engineering for lawyers course, where you
Mm.
put lawyers through an experiential framework to learn how to use these tools safely and effectively, really to build judgment. And even another initiative where, and it's always been client driven. They say, look, our clients are tech companies, or they have to deal with technology agreements. So we want all of our attorneys to learn about tech transactions. So we created a tech transactions simulated based training program that was deployed to everybody. And now we've continued to develop more things together with them and others, including DepoSim, which is the first AI deposition
Yeah.
simulator, which we'll talk about today. But yeah, excited to be. Simulations and judgment are now a sexy term, sexy terms being used today. But this is something that we've been thinking about, and clients like Orrick have been thinking about since the early days. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, and we will definitely be talking about the DepoSim, which some of you may know is literally an AI simulator. It's not just like a more general simulator. They're actually using AI to represent different parties in a deposition, but we'll come to that later. Right, let's kick off. So we've set the framework really here, what we're talking about. Kelly, let's get some sort of real life examples here. So how are you teaching these new lawyers, the people who are coming to you? What are you teaching them in terms of the legal bit and the tech bit, and how those two bits kind of fit together?
Yeah, we're definitely doing all of that. So we have the way our first years get onboarded is a little different, right? So we've had now for 4 years since the class of 2022. We have what we call the residency. So so a little background, then I explain how this all works out. It works out for us. So the residency is, our first years have the same overall hours requirement as everybody else. But we realized in 2022, really, at least partly as coming out of COVID and being in a hybrid work environment, that we needed to change the way we were onboarding people. Like Abdi was talking about how, when I was a lawyer, learning how to be a lawyer, and Abdi was, and Kate was. I mean, it's really, I mean, it's a apprenticeship model, right? When you to learn to be a lawyer, like being law school is great, but doesn't really teach you how to serve clients the way that we need to serve them, right? So we created the residency where we said we want you to do the same number of hours, right? We want you to learn the intensity, but we also appreciate that just dumping you right in to having a billable hours requirement, like revenue generating billable hours requirement, isn't helping anybody, because you're not learning how to serve our clients the way we need to serve them. In 2022, we were really focused on, it's hybrid. Maybe we need to find better ways to train them. So we were really focused on the substantive training, and they take AltaClaro classes. They have more opportunities to, work on a deal with someone. They don't necessarily have to bill that time to a client. They can take the time to go back and look at the documents, right? Interestingly, over the past 4 years, particularly, I mean, the past year or two, we still have the residency. We still use AltaClaro tools. We still are doing all this great stuff, but we've also created Residency Lab, right? Which is bringing our tech tools to our first years, right? And this is sort of for our very junior lawyers, saying, we bring vendors in to meet with our first years, and not just be a talking head about this is our tool, it isn't great, but like come here and use this tool. Like let me show you how this works. We're going to do a demo. But the demo is you get into some data, you get to really practice with it. And then we want our first years, our junior associates to be champions of these tools and go out to their teams and really be getting people to be using them. So it's not, and then on top of that, it's not even just using specific tools, but we'll talk a bit more about like how do you use tools? When should you use tools? Like when should you rely on tools? All that sort of good stuff. So yeah, it's sort of the beginning of what we're doing.
Fantastic. And I'll just say, actually, at this point, we'll definitely be doing lots of questions towards the end. But please feel free to send your questions in. There's a chat function. Someone's just sent in a question on the Q&A, but I think you can use the chat function as well if you wish. We'll also be doing a couple of polls, which we'll get to very shortly. But let's build on what Kelly was saying there. So Kate, just building out that point about the technology. I mean, what kind of things are the very junior lawyers doing with technology, and how is that actually helping with their education?
So we have a robust toolkit here at Orrick, and just on the AI side, over 35 tools that our lawyers are being trained on and are using in their day-to-day work. And so that includes tools that we've built, so like an internal chatbot, tools that we've bought, so enterprise AI for legal, think the Harveys and Lagoras of the world, and then AI that's being integrated into tools that we've already had in our toolkit, AI-assisted research in Westlaw, for instance. And so what we've done is we've mapped litigation and transactional workflows from start to finish, identified AI use cases in each phase, along with the tools to use for those tasks. And that's where we start with our
So right from day one, you're saying, right, this is the kind of work you'll be doing at Orrick, and these are the kind of tools you'll be using for these particular work streams.
Correct. And of course, these really are examples of use cases, because you can imagine we could sit and come up with 1,000 ways to use generative AI in the course of discovery, for instance. I mean, so they're high-level exemplary use cases. And we're also, as part of those workflows, sharing not just what to use, when to use it, but the impact that it can have, whether that's time saved or a better client experience or a new insight or picking up on an argument that may have a weakness. And so there's obviously change every day, but we start with that. And this isn't going to be a surprise, I'm confident, to anyone listening to this podcast, that just having technology alone is not enough. I raced sailboats in college and law school, and there was a saying that owning a racing sailboat, like things were always breaking. The sails would rip, things would break. It was like standing in a shower, ripping up dollar bills. Having technology without thinking about how to bring it to people, how to build the process, how to educate them, it's like ripping up dollar bills in the shower. And so there really isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. What we're finding most, and Kelly might even disagree with me. One of the things that I'm finding a tremendous amount of success with right now is, so we have these workflows, we're educating people from the start, but what we're doing is combining our technology training with our substantive training. So it's not just come join us and learn how to use this tool, but as part of our litigation training, we may have a 2-hour session on written discovery. And so the litigation associates are getting substantive training on rules and the strategy when either, issuing or responding to interrogatories, for instance. And what we do is we layer in the technology into the training itself. So we've talked about how to draft strong interrogatories. Let us show you how you can use these 2 tools in our toolkit to make them even better, or to test your interrogatories for weaknesses, or to get you a decent first draft of responses. Kind of combining the substance with the technology, we're finding a lot of success with. And I think it just brings it to life for all of our lawyers, not just our newest lawyers.
Because none of it's in a vacuum, right? Like you have to know how to write, that just interrogatory response. And then then you have to know how to use that so that you can really leverage the tool. Just like we just did a training on editing, you have to know how to edit. You have to know how to do passes on a document to figure out what you're looking for. And then we had one of the folks that works for Kate come in and say, all right, and here's this legal AI tool that you can use to really hone in on this. But you need to know what you're looking for and see where this tool is catching it or not catching it and doing a good job. You've got to use judgment.
Yeah, I really like. We'll come back to the judgment point because that's a very key thing. But I love a way that you've got this fusion that it's symbiotic. That you're not just like doing, hey, let's do a prompt class, on Wednesday
Right.
afternoon, and then hey, no, now we're going to teach you how to review a document. It's like no, the two things are from now onwards they're pretty much together, right? The idea
Yeah.
of it a law firm. I mean, a lot of people talk to me about AI first law firms, just going slightly off subject, and I say, well, yeah, but all law firms in the next couple of years will be AI first law firms, all of them, because all law firms will be using AI in their work, almost as their partner. So, Kate, you were nodding there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I also was nodding also, there's by combining the substance with the technology, I think we're also empowering our lawyers to think about it that way as well. You cannot segregate the two, and I like liken it to sort of like a search engine or a Google. I can tell you the kinds of things you can do with the tools, but you know what's on your desk. And so by forcing our folks to think about it as one and the same, the substance and the tech, I think we're also helping them identify other places to use the tech.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking as well about iPhones, for example. Like, you don't say to people, hey, make sure that you iPhone me tomorrow. You just say,
Yeah.
hey, you just say stay in touch because it's implicit that they're going to call you on their phone, right? Or
Mhm.
they're going to text you or whatever it is, right? We have become completely habituated to the idea that tech infuses our daily lives. So why can't we do this with the law as well? Why? I mean, we don't have any law professors here today. Oh, well, actually, we do have actually one in the audience. Hello,
Yeah.
Seth.
Yeah.
We'll come to you later. Why are those two things taught together? I'll go slightly off subject. We'll go to Abdi. We'll come back to some questions later. Abdi, let's just talk about one thing in particular, which is using AI simulations. I know that you've got the DepoSim, which is a litigation tool.
Yeah.
Talking about this, you're learning how to be a lawyer and you're learning how to use the tech. Can you just like talk us through that bit with DepoSim?
Yeah, absolutely. All of this was a part of an evolution of our continuous focus in simulation-based training since 2016. And it was really off of a book I read, The Secrets of New Expertise, Peak by Anders Ericsson. And in there, Ericsson had went and researched and talked to like thousands of professional athletes and professional musicians and tried to understand what made them great, right? And it was not surprisingly their 10,000 hours. In fact, this is where Malcolm Gladwell comes with this 10,000 hour concept, but it was very simplified in that book. But with Ericsson, it's like it's not just any 10,000 hours. These have to be just like athletes, practicing in sort of intense environments, isolating certain skills and getting immediate feedback, and then continuing to leveling up that challenge, right? And you think about it, athletes don't hone their skills at the game. Like football players or soccer players, in America, right? They practice, they scrimmage and get immediate feedback before the game, or musicians practice their ballads with feedback before going into a recital, right? And so leveraging this same concept into training was the crux of what we wanted to go after. So the key was building simulations that emulate the imperfect client, the imperfect client matters, missing facts, business issues, imperfect forms, inconsistent information, things that you normally would see with client matters, and having associates work through that to not just learn the substantive skills, but then to start building their judgment skills, right? Just like a chess player starts to understand 10 steps ahead of the opponent's move, you can build that similar judgment, which many seasoned practitioners will tell you in a deposition, I know exactly where this is going to go just based off the first 5 minutes. How do you get associates to that level? By giving them reps. So our training programs were giving feedback. There was a model answer and there was live review sessions, but we started to use AI in that feedback loop, where this is where AI can be leveraged to be your friend in a predictable way, believe it or not, right? It's not random AI, but it's creating a structured rubric, a pedagogy where there's things that are consistently being evaluated, although the facts may differ or things may differ, but you're giving consistent feedback leveraging technology. And this was a hit. This was a tool called Benchmark 360, where associates appreciated in their simulation assignments that they were going through, they were getting immediate feedback, letting them know what they're doing well, where they need to improve, right? The awareness that athletes get after doing a practice session. But more importantly, the firms would understand where gaps might be, and they could lean in and build on top of that, just like a coach would with an athlete, and continue to hone those skills for the mentee or the trainee,
Yeah.
making things a lot more efficient. So we won an award for this last year at ALM, the Legal Week, for our Benchmark 360. And we were thinking about how to leverage this tool for the next layer of a lawyer's job, the human to human part, the oral, negotiation, the taking a deposition, defending a deposition where it's things that AI can't replace, but you need a lot of judgment, right? I was just coincidentally, I was observing a deposition. I was involved with something, watching our lawyer taking a deposition of a witness who was really hostile, and the opposing counsel super aggressive. I knew we went in with these 20 questions, and immediately within 5 minutes, the partner who was doing the deposition threw those questions out the door and had to rethink the questions, pivot, and work through something else. And I thought, geez, how do you train an associate for something like this? I would never
Yeah.
want an associate on such a high stakes matter out
Mhm.
there unless they have enough reps. And that's when it hit me. And when we started
Yeah.
talking to clients and started talking to firms like Orrick, while yes, they have a great internal training program for depositions, but it happens like once a year. And then you ask, okay, what happens next? Well, it might be a year or two before they're given the real opportunity to take a deposition. And even then, it might be a low stakes one, a single plaintiff or a pro bono case. And you think back to the athlete analogy. Like we have a boot camp, we train you how to swim in this 1 week, and then for the next 2 years, we say, watch these swimmers at their game, and then
Mhm.
you're going to be in the Olympics in 2 years, right?
Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this goes to a central point, and we're going to do a poll on this
Yeah.
in a moment, which is that, traditionally, as everyone knows, the way that junior lawyers generally are trained. I know there are some exceptions, as Kelly was saying, but generally, client work comes into the law firm, partner, senior associate brings in some of the juniors and gets them involved in the matter. And they learn on the job. And then, of course, I mean, we've been talking about using AI and so forth, in terms of education and so forth. But what happens when some of the junior level work becomes absorbed, the process level work becomes absorbed? And I just want to do a quick poll, and we'll keep talking while the poll is going. But if we could put up the poll, that would be great. Fantastic. So here's a quick poll for everybody if you'd like to take part. Do you believe AI will significantly change what work junior associates are able to train on? One is strongly agree, sorry, one is strongly disagree, five is strongly agree. So this goes to the point that as AI becomes more and more part of a law firm's daily operation, will the junior lawyers actually have to do different things? Which then segues to the point that Abdi was making, which is how on earth do you then learn how to be a good lawyer in this particular area if your partner who's supervising you never sends you that work anymore?
Yeah.
So please have a vote if you wish. But Abdi, just now finish off your points about the AI bit and
Yeah, so
the personas because that's very cool.
absolutely. So that's where we got into building this flight simulator for lawyers, starting with depositions, but we're continuing to build it out for other types of situations a lawyer has to deal with. So we built an AI witness, AI court reporter, AI opposing counsel, and we built this guardrail framework where it's built on case files and a pedagogy and structure where you can go in and practice as many times as you want your deposition with these AI bots. And you could even toggle, say, make the witness hostile or make him very polished or make him an over talker. You can also toggle for the opposing counsel and make him aggressive. or make them less aggressive. But the idea is that you can go as little as 20 minutes to target practice or as long as 6 hours and literally conduct an entire deposition you've prepped for. And so we built this all out. Again, not random AI, very structured. We did internal testing, obviously, and we partnered with a company called Verbit. They're the leader in intelligence, transcription intelligence. And we went back to our clients, select few that consistently invest in training and consistently invest in innovation. And so Orrick was one of them, along with McDermott, K&L Gates, Littler, Taft, and Brownstein, firms of different size and different focus. And we asked each of them to give us 9 volunteers, 3 partners, 3 senior mid-level associates, and 3 junior associates to go in and test and mess with the AI and just bang on this thing like a real deposition. And what was really cool, do you know who the first people that went in were? The partners. And the firms gave us the most skeptical partners. And they went in and they loved it. They all came back and they said, this is a valuable tool for deposition training. And we want to use this at our firm, not just for our associates, but firm-wide. So now these firms have deployed it. It's commercially available. We're deploying it to the market, but we're building it out. In fact, this week we just released an employment case file where you can depose someone in an employment case. And we're going to keep going down the different sub areas.
Yeah. Well, you've got limitless opportunities here, haven't you, really?
Yeah, yeah. And our clients gave us the feedback of what should be next. So, for
Yeah.
example, oral advocacy, cross-examination, meet and confer, all of
Yeah.
this will be built, even negotiating a deal. But it goes to this point of building judgment, which you can
Yeah.
only
Well,
do through practice. Yeah.
which we're going to come to in a moment. I just want to cover that poll. I think you all saw it on the screen. It's disappeared again now. But basically, what it said, the majority of people said they did not believe that the work that junior lawyers trained on would be significantly different because of AI. So maybe we should have finessed the question a little bit. But basically, the general view is that junior lawyers will keep doing the same stuff, perhaps even if we have to do additional training as well, or perhaps they spend less time on it. Oh, actually, no, it's the opposite. Sorry, I've just been told. I keep transversing
I
the
was gonna
numbers.
say that surprised me, but
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I was going to say it's a very, very cynical bunch of people out there. But actually, Nicole, could you put the thing back up?
Yeah.
Is that possible? There we go. There we go. There we go. Ah, yes, it's the other way. Yeah. I always think 1 is good and 5 is bad, but yeah, it's the other way around. So yeah, people generally do believe that there will be a change in the work. Yeah, I've always believed that. I mean, I come from a more transactional background, not a lawyer by training, but I did work on deals, and the idea that some of that basic due diligence work or financial analysis is just going to be completely manual. It's just not going to happen. So that's really interesting. But let's go back to Kate, because when we were sort of talking earlier, we were talking about the point that this has got to be a balance. We can't encourage law firms to just go, oh, great, so we don't have to train the associates anymore. You know, Abdi and his tech team are just going to build simulators for them. How do we strike the balance? How do they do a bit of this and a bit of real?
So right now, I think it's a little bit of a kitchen sink approach. I don't think there is one right answer. I think I know what the wrong answer is, and that's to do nothing. I don't think this is a situation where we can assume that new lawyers are going to sort of figure it out. And we're just have to be methodical about finding ways to teach judgment.
Yeah.
And to finding ways to give and build experience. There was a question in the Q&A about what made Orrick choose to invest in simulation-based training. And I think, and I would love to hear what Kelly's thoughts on this, but I think one of the reasons that we saw value in this a long time ago is that the way that we practice has changed, and what our clients expect from us and outside counsel guidelines have changed. Clients are less enthusiastic about paying for first years to sort of learn on the job, but we still need to teach them, because what our clients want are trusted advisors and are solid, great judgment and advice. So I actually think we're investing in doing more to train our lawyers now than we were 20 years ago when I was learning to be a lawyer. It's much more methodical, and that I think includes having associates complete tasks the old-fashioned way through experiential learning programs like with AltaClaro. It's now starting to include explicitly training on associates on how to evaluate AI output, what to do with it, your how to layer on your judgment, what to look for. It's sort of bringing those real training concepts and opportunities to the forefront and not assuming folks are just going to learn it through osmosis.
Yeah,
And what
I mean,
we're
it goes to also. I was just gonna say, Kelly, so I'd like you to speak about this as well. Is the EQ, the emotional ability, not just the intellectual ability? Because going back to the example that Amty made of a deposition, partner goes in and goes, "Oh no, all those questions, they're useless." In this situation, they read the room, they take an emotional, temperature check, and they go, this is different. So how do you teach very young people who are probably very focused on the intellectual bit because they've just been through law school, right? Tons of exams. How do you do that?
Well, they have to practice, right? And that's what we really like about the DepoSim tool, but it's not doing it in a vacuum. So I will give you my very concrete example of what we're doing this summer, right? So we have a training in the beginning of June where we're going to have, this is like the concrete substantive piece, right? Like, what do we have junior associates do a lot on depositions? They write the outline, right? They're not necessarily the one that's taking the deposition in the very beginning. I mean, we get them at bats really early with that, but first thing you end up doing is learning how to make a depo outline, gather the documents. We're having a training on that. We're going to have a partner who's going to talk about what you need to be looking for, very substantive, all that other good stuff. And then we're going to roll out DepoSim during that training. And we're going to put our associates with a summer associate, right, into groups. And we're asking them to use the tool, right? And what we're doing, the tool, as you'll see if you've ever used DepoSim, includes a depo outline. We're asking the summer associates to take what they learned from their session in June. Look at the outline that AltaClaro provides in DepoSim. How would you revise it? How would you edit it based on what you learned, right? Share that with your team of mid-level and more senior associates, right? And then get together for an hour and use the tool, practice, like use a hostile witness, use a not hostile witness, all that other stuff, right? And then at the end of this, towards the end of the summer, we're going to get together and get some feedback. And we're also going to have a partner, actually one of the great partners that participated in the pilot to provide feedback, use the tool in front of everybody, right? So now they understand the case pattern, the case study, and they can say, oh, the partner did this, I did this differently, I like what I did, I didn't like what they did. And then even on top of that, so that's great. They're learning from the partners, they're doing something together, all that other great stuff. But we're also going to have the thing we've had for years that Abby was talking about. We have this great Depo boot camp where we actually have external folks come in, lead a Depo boot camp. We get actors to be the witnesses. AltaClaro isn't in lieu of that. AltaClaro gets the associates who are going to get this great opportunity to work with a live actor witness, a chance to practice before they go and meet with that witness, right? They're going to be even better and learn more because they're not going to be coming in cold to the Depo boot camp. And then after they go to the Depo boot camp, where they get to have a live actor witness and get that really great experience, they can continue practicing using DepoSim. It's all additive. And as Kate said, we're giving them more and more opportunities because what they need is a chance to stand up on their feet and do things.
And do you think this allows them, I mean, I'm sure you've all seen the debates at conferences or online that AI will enable people to do higher value work. And if that is true, then this applies to juniors as well. So do they advance faster through the cohort that we would normally expect? That after a couple of years, you're like, wow, Bob and Mary, wow. I mean, compared to me when I was that age, they're so much further ahead. Is that something we can aim for?
I think so. So to Kate's point, to Abdi's point before, and to your point too, like you, they need to know how to write an interrogatory response. They need to know how to object to an interrogatory response. But they're so much, but the process work, right? The things that are repetitive work product, that's going to be done by AI more and more. They need to be able to use their judgment, have developed the judgment to be able to review, troubleshoot, all that other good stuff. but more will be expected of them. Just like I said this to someone the other day, like, when I went to kindergarten in uh, 1980, right? It was very different than the kindergarten that my kids just finished, right? Like they're learning how to read. I was learning not to eat the Play-Doh. The first years, associates these years, right? Like we expect more of them. And it's just the way of life, it's the way the world is going too. But we are going to expect more of them sooner. And I think that's what law schools have to get them ready for. You're not going to come in to a big law firm and just start doing doc review like and
Yeah, yeah.
spend 9 hours a day doing that's not going to happen. You're going to learn how to do a doc review, and then you're going to be very quickly overseeing a doc. Like you're going to be having a pretty high level job on that doc review.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I mean, just off camera before we came on, we were talking, and Kate, I made the point about calculators, and I remember when I was a kid, there was a big discussion about should you have scientific calculators, the very fancy calculators, and eventually all the teaching unions and everybody just went, yeah. I mean, this is nuts. We can't just go back to just counting on our hands. It's not going to hold children back. It would be good for them. Just on that point, Kate.
Yeah, and so when we were chatting before, I um, said that I just thought a couple of days ago was thinking about sort of that question and that issue and was thinking about legal research. And I was trained to perform legal research both with the books and with Westlaw and Lexis. I was kind of in the bridge phase. But I imagine that when the Westlaw and Lexises of the world just hit the scene, that there was probably a similar reaction to the calculator. Like, are we going to be losing something by not having folks use the books and learn the books, and to follow the genesis of the sort of the through line of a holding and precedent through the books and all of the cases. But I think what we found is we haven't lost that, through electronic legal research. We've accelerated our ability to get to the heart of the issue faster. And that's just picking up on exactly what Kelly is saying, sort of that accelerated value, and judgment. It's just, to me, reminded me a lot of your calculator example. You're much more quickly to go from doing a simple calculation to a more complex calculation.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. And also, I guess it hopefully prevents this kind of overkill that, I've done 17 M&A due diligence reviews, or I've done 17, basic, review tasks. I really don't need to do 17 more. Could you just put me on some proper billable work? Maybe
Yeah.
introduce me to a client, maybe. Who knows? It might work wonders,
Yeah.
Yeah, Abdi,
I
go.
just want to add, what's great, what I'm seeing at firms like Orrick that are succeeding at this, because we service the market and we see different approaches to training and how folks are leveraging, but Orrick makes an intentional space for their associates to take this deliberate practice on, right? Within the first 6 months, as Kate and Kelly mentioned, that they have the space to really learn. We're putting them through, when they go through the AltaClaro training program, those M&A lawyers have gone through 3 M&A deals from start to finish, structuring the deal, putting the closing checklist together, drafting and negotiating those core agreements. And in each one of those deals, things go wrong that they have to work on, and work through. So the asset deal is no longer, they now have to do a stock deal, right? Rework the entire agreement the old school way, not even use a template. So that when the time comes to put them on a deal, whether it's starting at a lower level, they'll be more prepared and continue to accelerate faster. The same thing with the litigation. So, but firms, I think there are firms who don't make the space and they want to stuff training down. And can you imagine? I mean, not can you imagine? This is a yeah, this
Well,
is
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah. Well, without mentioning the names of any law firms, I
Yeah,
can imagine some. Yeah,
yeah,
totally. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, that brings us to our next poll, which is again, it kind of connects to the work that junior lawyers do. Nicole, could you put up the next poll, please? So this kind of relates to this. When AI takes over more process work, i.e., more basic work, junior lawyer type work, diligence, doc review, first draft, so forth, what is your biggest concern? Juniors just won't develop legal judgments, right? We speed them up the top of the hill, but they just don't have that what they need. We'll end up hiring fewer associates. We don't want to go too far down that road, but please give your view. Client expectations will shift faster than we can adapt. So the clients will be watching this and they'll be like, oh, right. So like your junior associate can now manage a $1 billion deal. Wonderful. Because like your junior associates are way cheaper than the senior ones. Are the clients going to get the wrong end of the stick? What do you think? Or other? I'm not concerned. We will go to questions in about 4 minutes. We've got a whole bunch of questions. If you do have a question, now is the time. Fire away. You can use the Q&A function. I think everyone seems to be using that. Please send us your questions. We'll pick through them momentarily. But just the last thing before we go on to the questions, but both Kate and Kelly. I mean, just generally, I mean, how do you see things panning out now? Because we're on the road now, aren't we? I mean, the train was in the station for quite a long time, and we're really motoring. There's a new LLM model every 2 or 3 weeks. People are talking about the fact that Anthropic is probably going to break down the door in a year or so with like mythos, and things are really, really accelerating, perhaps faster than some people expected. I mean, how do you think you're going to adapt?
Sorry, I was on mute. Um, I think we're going to keep doing what we're doing. If I knew the answer to that question, I could be a gajillionaire. And I think that you can find opposite ends of the spectrum in any day of the week in the Wall Street Journal, in the news, that can make you feel really scared, or really great. So I think I was actually thinking about how I would answer the polling
Yeah,
question.
those questions. Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
I was like, I don't like any of these. I think I would be other. Not that I'm not concerned, because I think we all need to be very mindful and thoughtful, but um, and it isn't a concern, but I think as AI takes over more process work, we have to keep our foot on the accelerator with respect to training, developing judgment, and thinking very deeply and seriously about how we are sort of building the next generation of lawyers starting in law school. I see there's a question in the chat from a law professor, but my biggest concern is not for us, because I think that we are laser focused on this, but my biggest concern is just more broadly that um, law firms or other sort of legal organizations take their foot off the accelerator, or assume that lawyers are going to figure it out or pick it up through osmosis. And I think we have to be really mindful and methodical about how we're training.
Yeah, no, totally. Because I mean, some people are critical of big law, but one thing you can say for big law is generally, it's an incredibly educational environment. You will learn an enormous amount, which is one of the great positives of big law. And also, Kelly, what do you think? I mean, just looking at the answers here. So juniors won't develop legal judgment. It's for 61% there. That is clearly the main concern, which makes a lot of sense. We'll hire fewer associates. Client expectations will shift. Otherwise, I'm not concerned. Kelly, what do you think?
So this is such a plug for the thing that I run at Orrick. We want them to develop legal judgment. We think that's really important. One of the reasons we do this residency program where you don't have a revenue generating requirement for the first 6 months is because partners often, not always, don't want to staff junior lawyers because they're expensive and they're inefficient and they don't know what they're doing and they blow up their budgets. And it sort of reinforces that we need to create ways to incentivize attorneys at the firm to put junior, like first years, on their matters so that they can learn, right? Without the pressure of being like, oh gosh, that took me 10 hours and it should have taken me 5. That's okay. We know it's going to do that. Like it's fine. And so that's what we see, is that we have all these first years that are getting these experiences working on matters, learning how these deals work, being inefficient, learning how to be more efficient. And what we find is the first couple months, they don't really bill a ton of time. They use like a special code, whatever. But now the residency is actually almost over for our first years. That ends on May 31st. And for most of them, they actually are billing. I call them all the time. They're just about where they need to be now, right? Because they've gotten that experience, and you have to create a place for them to learn and get the experience doing things. And I think AltaClaro, their classes help with that. one of the questions. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but it actually answers one of the
Yeah, no.
questions in here, which was what's actually changed at Orrick because of AltaClaro? That was one of the
Yeah,
questions in
fair
the chat.
question. Yeah. Yeah.
And it is our folks, our first years come in and they really jump right into AltaClaro. And so they don't have to wait to get an experience using it, like how to draft an NDA, because they get to do it in their like second or third week doing an AltaClaro corporate boot camp, right? They don't have to wait to get the experience to do draft a depo outline because they do it when they first start, right? And then when they go and get that opportunity, which might not happen for a month or two, depending on what deal they're on and the stage of the deal or the litigation, they're like, oh, I did that thing. And then they can go back to the materials that they got from AltaClaro, reference them, and move on, right? Is AltaClaro everything they need? No, but is it this? It's like just like it's
Yeah.
getting away from the blank page. The other thing that we
Yeah.
do with it too is that um, the benchmark 360 thing, like where we get basically grades on how they did. We took the grades on the litigation writing program or class that they took, and we developed a writing program for our junior associates based on what they needed, they didn't do well on. And so that was like a direct correlation of the class they took. And it was great. It was fantastic. And then they keep getting better.
Like it, like it. What was a whole bunch of questions? Thank you for that, Kelly. And
Yeah.
let's just I mean, Seth Chandler, who's a professor in Houston, was quick off the mark. So we'll address his question, which is slightly going away from law firms. It was basically, what should law schools be doing? Obviously, they are the root of all lawyers ultimately, be doing with AI training, particularly with limited budgets. I know none of you are university professors, but just your own, just quickly, just any thoughts? What can universities and law schools do?
So it's funny, I saw this question come through. In the past month, I've talked to three professors at three different law schools who were
Uh,
curious about this and had a question about this. They just reached out to me like a bit of a cold call. I also presented recently to a law school class at my alma mater on this. And the advice that I give is one is to educate your professors. So to help the professors get comfortable with the technology, understand what it is. A couple of years ago, presented to Duke law professors and just shared how we think about technology at a large law firm to give sort of some context and to bring it to life. To reach out to folks like me and others, and I hope like my phone line isn't blowing up, but
your phone is gonna go.
right, ask
Yeah.
law firms to come in, do a lunch and learn, share with whether it's the professors or the law students. It's much less important for a law school to train on how to use a tool. What we are what we are looking for as a law firm is that when law students join us as summer associates or associates, they understand the importance of asking what tools are there that I should be using. Like they have that sort of curiosity.
Uh,
We don't need associates to know all the tools and all the buttons to push, but we want them to understand that there is an element in every substantive thing you're doing of leveraging technology. And so anything law schools can do to bring that to the forefront, whether through lunch and learns or a little certification that is run through the sort of library, invite speakers to just bring it to life.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and on the point about AI, I was just looking at a survey released by Thomson Reuters, and I've seen other ones. But I mean, like all the law students coming through now, particularly like, going through into the next year, particularly, they've grown up with AI already. I mean, it's already been
But
running since late 22.
what is interesting is I asked a professor, what are you seeing with law students? And what they're seeing is folks on the spectrum,
Yeah.
people that do not want to use it at all and are
Yeah.
terrified by it. And then people that are probably, I don't want to say misusing it, but being a little more aggressive. And they're not seeing a lot of people in the middle. And this is where we all should be.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Like, so teach them how to use it. So
Yeah.
Abdi?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, so there's some law schools that are raising their hand and partnering with companies like ours. So, for example, Cleveland State University rolled out our prompt engineering training program, the same one that Orrick uses and all these AM law firms use for all of their law students. And it
Right.
was great to see that initiative. But to Kate's point, we saw the spectrum of folks, students telling us they're afraid of this before they went in. But what was cool is, again, how education can be the catalyst to overcome the fear and see the benefit of it, to use it safely. And so that's an important part of this road for them, to see how they can use it safely and effectively, make them curious, how it's not going to be the end of them, and it could be the beginning of them if used the right way. Yeah.
Gotcha. Actually, there's a couple of kind of related questions. One's about ROI. The other one was about how can you show that this has made an improvement. I don't know if Abdi and you can well,
Yeah.
Kate and Kelly you can all answer this, but just briefly, I guess, in a nutshell, how do you know if this is actually helping?
Yeah, we actually did an ROI study a few years ago, and Orrick was a part of it, as well as 10 other AM law firms in different size and shape, and looked at this issue. When you look at the billable hour rate of a partner to create a training program that's on foundational work, right? And you look at the time they take when the first few drafts need rework and rewrite, right? And have to rework it, and then they have to write that time off. And if they have time and their mentor focus, they'll focus on mentoring that associate. All of those hours add up if you don't get it right in the beginning. So when you put a training program like this in place, where the firm is partnering and relying on us to teach the foundations, right? So that when you now have the partner build on top of it, whether it's in a training program or in the middle of a deal, it's efficient and effective. Like, the bottom line is a lot better. Like,
Yeah.
as a
Well, totally. I mean, it's like asking, is education worth it? I mean, should you learn to spell? Hey, what's the ROI? Basically, guys, you're gonna need this. I think that's the key thing. So another couple of connected questions. Someone from the UK perhaps has asked, is this just for the US? Can we do this in the UK with AltaClaro? Are you going global?
Yes, we have clients outside of the United States, and so happy to chat about that. For many of our training programs, the DepoSim can be adjusted for jurisdictions pretty easily as well, too. Yeah.
There's a slightly surreal question. Is the feedback an AI hallucination? I'm not quite sure what that means, but I mean, but let's pick up on that point because it does always pop up in conversations about AI. When you're using DepoSim, how do you know that one of the avatars is not saying something completely bananas?
Yeah, great question. This is not random AI. This is not like talking to Chat GPT. There's a
No.
structured guardrail framework in place. We worked a lot of hours in building so that the facts of the case will always be consistent. The pedagogy will be consistent. What will vary, thanks to AI, is how the witness or opposing counsel behaves.
Yeah, and
And
I'll actually say this as there's a question there which connects with just what you were saying. Can the AI witness actually mimic a real deponent, or does it feel scripted? And I've listened to one of these. I listened to one of these twice actually, and believe me, I don't claim to be an expert on this, but it felt extremely real. I don't know. Let's go to Kate and Kelly because obviously you're the users of this. How did you feel about this? Did it feel real?
Yeah, so the DepoSim tool is really you go in, it has a couple documents that you can look at. It's really easy to just jump in. They give you a depo outline, and then it's you and there's an AI court reporter, opposing counsel, and witness. And you jump in and start asking the witness questions about there's the different claims in sort of the case that they have, the sort of fake case that they have. And they you can jump in really quickly because it has this depo outline, and he starts responding. The witness starts responding to you, and then the opposing counsel will start interjecting, right? And it gives you an opportunity to, in a very real way, to practice, introducing a document, to practice, dealing with the hostile witness. And then at the end, it also gives you a chance to look at the transcript. And in a very basic way, you can look at the transcript and so, oh, I said like too many times, which I 100% do. I said too many times. It lets you sort of work out all those verbal tics in addition to just getting experience doing all of these very basic deposition skills.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. And actually, someone said, "Can we see a demo?" The answer is yes. Abdi, we did one with Artificial Lawyer, didn't we?
yes, there is
Yeah.
on.
So if you go onto Artificial Lawyer, if you don't know Artificial Lawyer, artificiallawyer.com, and just type in AltaClaro, you'll probably get a whole ton of answers. But if you search for one that will say product walkthrough, you will see a demo with a recording of a live practice session effectively, which you can watch for free. And of course, if you contact AltaClaro, of course, they'll be delighted to have a chat with you. Oh my God, we've only got 4 minutes left. This is zoomed by. Okay, here we go. Smaller law firms, fair point. Constrained budget. Everything comes back down to money, doesn't it? At the end of the day, understandably. If you are a small law firm with a constrained budget, but with sophisticated, okay, so you're a small law firm, you don't have much cash to spend on this, but you have smart clients. How are you going to do this? Abdi, yeah, yeah,
Go
if you
ahead,
want.
Abby.
Well, I was just going to say, we hear both from small, mid, and large firms, and why this is helpful. Small firms can scale with us by recruiting and training better. And if a provider is using technology in the right way, this should not be crazily priced, which it isn't, and it should be. It actually has a reward attached to it at the end. So anyway, that's just my
Well,
perspective.
and I think that this also refers to sort of broader, more complicated, well, not more complicated, but more, multi-part training. Kate and Kelly, how can smaller firms do what you do or attempt to?
I mean, I think that the reality is that to do something like the residency program may in fact be very difficult for a smaller firm. But I do think that something like AltaClaro, like a technology enhanced training, is a really great way to allow smaller firms to scale, to give those opportunities to their associates. They might not be able to say, associates, you have 6 months to train and develop, but they could say you have this tool to practice depositions. In this period of time or on your own time to get you ready.
And also
Yeah.
talking about the different ways. I mean, just like Kate said with law schools, just find ways to get your associates open to using these tools and as much as you can, it will make them more efficient.
Yeah. And there's two. I think we have touched on both of these, but we've only got 2 minutes. But Kelly, I think you could probably answer these straight away. So how do you evaluate progress? And then secondly, there was a question of, do you take the associates off work while they're doing this training, the simulation training? I think you did cover this, but go for it again.
Yeah, so we evaluated. I mean, we're in like in a constant feedback loop with the attorneys that they're working with and the practice managers who are the folks that are working at like looking really closely at our associates. So we're really in a constant loop about that. And I saw a question about the how, gosh, if they're not billing as much time, how do we see the ROI on that? The partners love it because they're getting these associates in and they're learning how they get to take a little bit of time to teach them how to do things the way they want them done. It's like, teach a man to fish, right? Like you're teaching them how to fish and you're taking the time to teach them how to fish so that they're going to be much more useful and ready to go than if you just thrown them in there and said, figure it out.
Yeah.
So the ROI is definitely there.
Fantastic, fantastic. Amazingly, we've zipped through the whole hour already. So thank you very much for everyone for attending. Thank you very much for your questions. This has been recorded. You will be sent more information, and I think a link to the recording if you want to share it with your friends and colleagues from AltaClaro. But especially special thank you to Kelly and Kate for sharing their real world experience. Really, really interesting. And of course, thank you for Abdi for putting this on and for telling us all about DepoSim. Thank you. And look out for the next AltaClaro webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.